Interview with Dogman, SONNY SIKES.
How old are you?
I'm 47 now, but I saw my first dog fight when I was just 9.
He looked at me across the table and smiled widely. SONNY SIKES lived in Chicago. Right around the corner, by the forge where Joe Corvino kept his dogs. SONNY, like Joe, is from Italy, and was introduced to Joe by his uncle. When I was talking to SONNY, I noticed a t-shirt hanging on his bedroom wall. Waving to her, he said,
"That's the king's chest."
And later he explained to me that he considers Bert Klaus the true king of Pete. This and similar statements made our interview fascinating. I'm happy to dedicate it to the great old days of Chicago dogmen. And in particular, Joe Corvino. This is an exclusive interview with SONNY SIKES. I hope you can enjoy these amazing stories, in which the great images of the past come to life. And his book of life is revealed. Read with pleasure, plunging into the atmosphere of a bygone time. Through the proud eyes of one man, who has been a dogman for 38 years. SONNY, where did you get your first puppies?
I got my first puppy from Joe Corvino when I was 8 or 9 years old. This little dog lived with me for 18 years. She was with me even when I got married. I tested her, just once, with a female Ravenclaw named Jonesy, but she was no good.
What kind of person was Joe?
Joe Corvino, he was Italian, a very good man, and intelligent. He was like that, he talked a lot, but he had a lot on his mind. He was a tough man. I believe that Joe was one of those who was ahead of his time. He was a friend of many who were in dogfighting. Lots of guys came to the forge where he worked, but no one stayed for long. He gave me a lot of knowledge about dogs, and he also taught me how to shoe horses. I spent a lot of time building on him, and to be honest, I believed he would trust me, so I persisted. The other boys went and did stupid things, and I spent all my time there.
Was Joe almost like a father to you?
Maybe so, but I always saw him as a friend, despite being much older than me. When I met him, he was already 50 years old. As for me, he was more like a big brother to me. You see, Joe had 9 children, 4 boys and 5 girls, but none of his children were interested in dogs, because they had to take care of them, clean the kennel. And I still starve for those things, because I love dogs.
Who were Joe's best friends?
Well, he had a lot of friends. He was good friends with Bert Klaus, Earl Tudor, Walter Komasinski, Pete Sparks, Leo Kennard, George Sadler, Jack Kelly, Maurice Carver, Mike Ferris, Whiz Hubbard and many others. Joe knew the old Irishman well, as did Con Feely, Pat Conroy, the Farmer Brothers, and of course John Colby.
Did he tell you how it started? With dogs?
Yes, he told me. He stole his first dog from the innkeeper, and took it home. He broke its front leg because he knew it would be wanted. He was 8 or 9 years old. Pete Sparks once wrote in his magazine that Ravenclaw stole his first dog and showed him off whenever he could. Pete Sparks published a very good magazine called Your Friend and Mine. But he only fought one dog. He wasn't a dog fighter, but he was a breeder, and a publicist. He based his breeding on Colby dogs. Joe told me that Con Feely is a good dogman, and hard to beat. Personally, I believe that the real dog fighters come from Ireland. The Farmer brothers, too, were Irish, and dog men, very competent. Back then, Chicago was a hotbed of fighting dogs. That's where the good dog men from Ireland went. They were the first to bring these dogs to Europe. Prior to that, wrestling was an Irish sport. Joe started with breeding dogs from the Feely line. He got dogs from Jack Williams of Colorado. It's not Williams from Oklahoma. It's the one from Colorado. These dogs were from Lady Lou and Turk from Bruce. They were also dogs created by Feely. Joe bought the dogs from a man named Cunningham in southern Illinois. He also had dogs, Menefees and tutors. Joe knew a lot of people because he traveled a lot. As I said before, he knew Colby, and now I'm going to prove it to you. Showing some letters from his correspondence.
What was the best cross Joe made?
I would say the Feely lineage, with Menefee. It is a cross, based on Trahan's Rascal and Dubois breeding. You see, Joe kept his creation a secret. He didn't create, the way people think. He could breed, with closely related males. It's the same with the females, and then he cross-references the result. Joe was obsessed with the game. He didn't like anything but Gameness dogs. That's what he believed in, and he taught me to understand. He liked dogs, who held the opponent by the muzzle, or by the ear. And meanwhile he protected himself from trouble there. Joe didn't like a smothering dog. He always said, a dog that works like this is a dog that runs away from confrontation. The dog goes to the hind legs of the opponent, because there he cannot see the teeth. Joe really liked the craftsmen, masters, and bosses.
Was Joe a dog fighter?
No. He was absolutely dog-related. Every time we went to some kind of meeting or something, we always went early because he was always looking forward to seeing the guys, who would come up to him with their dogs. Joe was interested in what and how the dogs did it, how the blood was crossed and all that.
Joe was more of a breeder than a dog fighter, right?
Then. He was definitely a creator. But he tested the dogs seriously, really seriously.
How did he do it?
Okay. You were not in that forge. As I said, he never put a dog down to hurt him. He was looking for the gameness. That's why he made difficult tests. He pitted 2 and even 3 dogs against 1 dog. To see if his dog could take it. And if the dog didn't pass the test, he got rid of him. But in no case did he sell. And he wouldn't put it in the fight, if that dog didn't have gameness. Sometimes he would put the dog to roll, wearing a muzzle. To see how he would fight in this situation.
Do you think these methods are relevant now? Would you set 2 or 3 dogs against 1 dog to test him for a fight?
No. I do not do this. I already did it once, but I won't do it again. I've had dogs who don't fight a dog, not even a fresh one. But if you get them in shape, they beat the same opponent. Joe has not tested dogs under 2 years of age. He could let an early started dog roll. But he wouldn't give him a roll, heavy, before 2 years old. And he never put dogs in a fight before he was 3 years old. I'll tell you one thing. If you really want to test your dog, don't pit 2 or 3 dogs against him. I advise you to release the dog from the chain, without preparation. You will be pitted against an opponent who is 2 to 4 kilos heavier. Let them fight for 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll see everything you need. I've done it that way, and I'll continue to do it. And I guarantee it will all become clear when they put up a good fight.
I've heard from some people that in the old days, they muzzled the dogs and let them fight like that. What do you think?
It's very possible. But it's a completely different situation, putting a muzzle on a dog, and letting him fight for a while. If you let him do this for more than 5 or 6 minutes, you will ruin your dog. He will just have crazy stress, which will hurt him from the inside. When you take his muzzle off, your dog will be so exhausted, he will barely be able to stand. This is a good exercise, but when it lasts no longer than 30 seconds. Cajun rules require the dog to be prepared. I know how to reduce dog weight. And put it on a ring weight before starting work. If you do it right, your dog will. Listen. It's a trick. Keep your dog neither fat nor skinny. For weeks before the fight, take off half a kilogram. In the last 2 weeks, return half a kilogram, so that at the time of the fight, the dog's phosphorus is slightly lighter. Everyone does it one way, but this is how I do it. I have my own training method, and I trust that my dogs will not have breathing problems when they have to fight. And why the hell am I telling my secrets, you motherfucker? Go ahead, next question.
How was the preparation in the old days?
Yes. Some people already knew how to do it. But not everyone.
How important is preparation in your opinion?
Very important. I think it is 70% of the victory. I would even put it this way, if a dog can't breathe, it can't fight. The heart sends messages to the brain, and oxygen is most important in that. If you can't breathe, you can't run. The same happens with pit bulls during a fight. This is the most important thing you can do for your dog. So that your body produces red blood cells to oxygenate the circulation. But, that doesn't mean that you will get rid of the hard work. Nothing replaces hard work.
What can you say about the relationship between Howard Haensel and Joe Corvino?
First of all, I want to say that Haensel has always treated me very well. He sent me many dogs. I have nothing bad to say about Haensel. He and I got along really well. I got it from Mike Ferris, with a dog he sent me. All the dogs he sent me were free. Joe and Haensel were no longer friends for a long time. The fight between them started when Haensel lived in Chicago. Haensel was born in Chicago, then moved to Arizona. He went along with his partner, Bruce Johnson. They started a farm, but both went bankrupt. Haensel had Colby dogs but didn't have a place for them. So Joe took the Haensel dogs. Haensel paid Joe 25 cents a day for each dog to feed them. Then Joe demanded 30 cents of Haensel as it was hard to find dog food. Haensel thought Joe wanted to keep his dogs for him. And from there began their antipathy, completely irrational. Haensel maintained this hatred for many years. That was between Joe and Haensel, but there was more. Haensel, and a man named Bud Morelli, stole Joe's dog. They stole it while Joe's son, Joe Jr., was walking his dog outside the house. This dog's name was Blackie. After Hansel stole the dog, he sent the dog to Earl Tudor. Joe found out, and Earl Tudor learned what happened. But, he didn't give the dog back to Joe. Joe and Earl Tudor were good friends and still are. But after that incident, their relationship grew colder.
How many dogs did Joe keep?
He lived in the city, therefore he had limited space. There were about 12 to 15 dogs in their kennel. He cooked the dogs food every day. He always lived near the forge. This man liked dogs. When Joe worked at the forge, he shoot horses or something like that. He kept in touch with several people in his town. These people had 1 or 2 dogs of their breeding.
Joe built his own treadmills. Does that mean he preferred training on the treadmill more than on other equipment?
No, actually, in the beginning he trained dogs walking. Then he started using mats. He had a round, but he didn't like it. He sold it to Bert Klaus. And when Bert died, this projectile still remained. And others worked on it. Joe did the best runways. He used the floor, a running board. Today's catwalks are copies of what Joe used to do. Colby used carpet, but Joe preferred the boards.
How did he train the dog on the treadmill?
The dog was trained at a walking pace. That is, with slow steps. I don't like running dogs. Well, that's just to burn fat, not to get in shape. I like to train, in a balanced way, until the tongue is expelled. That's right. Remember, many fighters have lost due to poor training. I think a lot of guys train a lot with their dogs. Today, to understand how to condition a dog, it is better than in the past. Yes, they turn pit bulls into skin and bones. If you serve only meat for 20 to 30 days for your dog, all the fat will leave your body, and it will be left with nothing. Few guys do it differently nowadays, like Ham Morris and Walter Komosinski. They do it very well, and rest. It's like 2 guys getting into a dogfight on the wrong day. And the dogs, they couldn't hold, not even a girl with their mouth, you know.
In your opinion, who was the best coach back then?
I would say Don Mayfield and Roland Fontenot.
Why?
Good. You said yourself, that some people take dogs, overweight. And Mr. Mayfield has a reputation for keeping dogs in pristine condition. And it's true, that at that time, he was the best coach. But nowadays, he wouldn't stand a chance. Because he continues, committed, to the old methods. I saw him, in one of his last fights. He had a dog named Snow. Against Charlie, who was Jeep's litter brother. Mayfield didn't stand a chance in this fight.
Who in his opinion was the better handler?
Fontenot and Jerome Hernandez were good manipulators. As for my opinion, they were the best among dogmen.
How important is handling to win?
Very important. However, that doesn't mean you have to jump around the dog. There are people who are screaming and screaming. When his dog, he already fights well, and at a great pace. And they do, for 20 minutes of the fight, or more. You can't go crazy and act wild in the ring. Even because, the other dog can hear you. And as good as yours. I think handling is very important. But when the dog is tired, seriously injured, or simulating giving up. When the two dogs are down. It's the moment of truth, and the fight turns into a real fight. In which both coaches and training participate. And that's where the gameness comes in, and the extreme.
You told me, when you handle a dog in the ring, you don't like to use a wet sponge in the corner. Why not?
If you are putting a dog, who wants to fight, you will need to understand that he doesn't need a helper in the corner. I don't mind washing my mouth a little after the dog has bitten. But I've seen people soaking the dog in the corner. Due to this cooling, in excess. The dog, in my opinion, is in a difficult position. I don't think you are being mean to the dog. If you give the option, between the fight, or the corner with fresh water. Your dog will remember this during the fight. You cannot stop a gameness dog by throwing a bucket of water on it. But I don't particularly like it.
What was your longest fight?
3 hours and 10 minutes, and it ended in a tie. Against Red Howl in Chicago. This was before dog fighting was criminalized. I don't remember, but I remember that the weight was 21 kilos. I put the dog from the Klaus line, the Butch. The dog Howl died 6 months later. I placed mine against the dogman Mike Ferris, and won, in 1 hour and 10 minutes. Mike had a dog that Floyd Boudreau sent specifically to beat my dog.
What was the shortest fight?
Against Clyde Mason, in 6 minutes. I hit him with my bitch Audrey. She was from a mating, STU Fowler with Mayfield.
Did you train those dogs the same way?
Yes, they trained the same way. And it didn't affect the fight at all. They had different opponents.
What can you tell me about Bert Klaus?
Bert has always been a great person and a great dogman. He was the true king of the track. And the great coach of his time. But by today's standards, he would probably already be average. But in his time, he was one of the best. Bert was a very educated and well-read person. He, like Joe, preferred dogs, with a fighting style, and an athletic build. He once had a dog, named Butch, which he got from Joe. He won 6 times with this dog. The Butch was of the Mason lineage. Joe bought the dog from Jimmy Shear in Louisiana. He used the Butch in cash fights. Joe was very fond of this dog, because he knew this bulldog was good. So he paid $50 for it, and he took it to Chicago. When Bert saw this pit bull, he liked it a lot, and wanted to buy it. He kept about 35 to 40 dogs with him. Among them were good bulldogs. He had Nubby, Waggy, Big Boy, and others. It was in the 40s and 50s. Bert, like many others. He also won, the first dog, from Joe Corvino.
What's the best dog you've scored a fight with?
A dog named Bob. I got it from a man named Icon, he's from New York. The dog was black, and weighed 20 kilos. He is the father of Stabber, of Bert Klaus. I beat Teal, and Cotton, with him. It was against a dog, 5 times winner. A dog named Playboy. And more importantly, I also beat Komosnski, in a fight of 1 hour and 40 minutes. He was a great dog, and incomparable, who was with me in the ring. He had other masters before coming to me. I found out that he had already won, in 5 different states. And with different names. He and my female, Snubby, were poisoned. They died, in my arms. He and Snubby were my best dogs.
What is your relationship with Don Mayfield?
We are good friends. Don had a dog named Lightning 1 and another named Lightning 2. They were Ravenclaws, but later, when I got out of the fight, he switched to the black dogs.
Many people say that Don Mayfield is crazy. What do you think? And truth?
Good. I think he might be crazy about drugs. But he is an open book to me. Sometimes I even feel guilty for not being crazy in this crazy world.
What would you say about Mayfield as a creator?
Unfortunately, I had no luck with their dogs. Bought from a trusted friend who had bought from Mayfield. His name is Paul Siafakis. He lived in Texas for a while, but now, he's moved back to Chicago. I didn't mean that these dogs are not good. But I didn't win with them. And let's not talk about it anymore. And I say the same for the dogs created by Patrick and Hammonds. I had a dog that Bob Lowry bought from Pat Patrick. I kept him for months, years, and gave him every chance to prove himself. But in the end, I had to get rid of them.
Let's get back to prep. Why do you think Mayfield was so successful in its day?
I don't know. But he gets the most out of the dog, and back then, few guys could compete against him.
So maybe he was already on steroids?
Perhaps. If you think this explains why. I really do not know. Some people are talented. And I repeat again, there are few such people. And I include Don Mayfield among them.
What is effective in reproduction today?
I am not a great friend of Sorrel's. But deep down, I know he's a good dogman and a good breeder. And believe me, I can't say that of many. The intentions of reproducing Pat Patrick and Hammond are very different. Sorrel's actively uses what he creates. You understand me? I cannot be at the forefront as a creator if I am not active.
Do you believe that dogs bring a lot of money to some people?
I don't know if that's the case. But it's true, they earn money from the fight. But remember, money won't help you get a good dog. You can even buy some good dogs. But, they will cost the same as a whole family of dogs. You have to be a firm and objective dogman, with common sense. Unlike those who think that money can buy everything. Look at me. I bought puppies for $800. And I won what? I don't think you can buy a good dog. I'll tell you one thing. I don't trust people. They say that they mate to have gameness. But in reality, they mate to bite. You can see all the magazines, and see the fight reports. Go see what's going on. The duration of the fight is 15 to 17 minutes.
Well, what does that mean?
People leave dogfighting, and when you follow them, you end up making a huge mistake. Today, it's hard for beginners to find something good. You cannot find. That the situation is still the same for 100 years. Since when dogs were brought to America from across the ocean. And don't think that the Irish only brought the dogs. They also had friends and family back home. That relationship was closed. And they knew a lot, even who said, and what. Today, poor people don't know how it could start. They read articles in books, and they start. Oh. This dog is a 5-time winner. But, they don't know anything about this dog's owner.
In other words, how important is it to have good contacts?
Believe me, it's very important. Always was like this and always will be. Guys with famous names sell more dogs. Remember if their names are in various articles in magazines. They sell puppies in bulk. It never occurs, for buyers, to look at the dogs, from which they were born. They sell papers. High-end, pedigreed papers. From hard work, from other people. Which made these guys' dogs so attractive. They do business with a dog. It's something. That's what I see, you know. Or do you think, what am I talking about, something wrong?
Who do you consider a good breeder?
Carolina Kennels has always been well represented. One of the best. If you like the red boy type, it's Fletcher Chavis you should look for. He's an old man, but a nice guy, who sold dogs. He sold dogs, to some, who wanted to start. I know a Mexican who bought a whole yard of dogs from him. But I haven't heard from him yet. Maybe he did something, I don't know. Chavis was the first to make a champion, from the Red Boy bloodline. It was John Yellow. After he came, Champion Toro and John Boy, with STP. But Fletcher Chavis was the first to make a champion. Bert Sorrells, it's also worth visiting him personally, and Carl Wynn too. Talk to these people, and watch how they do. For me, Sorrells' dogs are a clean, active family. I would recommend the Sorrells bloodline, and the Corvino. I like Blue Monday dogs. Or anything that has blood in it, Red Jerry. All other breeders cross bloodlines. I have Greenwood dogs, which I bred to my Boomerang. And it worked fine.
Sonny. You must have some Corvino dogs, right? You must be hiding somewhere. Will you tell me the truth?
No. I have nothing. Look, I'm just not going to send you to. And that. End of interview.
Okay. So tell me. Who is that black bitch? In your backyard?
Good. She is a 6/8 Ravenclaw, her name is Ashley. I'm going to mate her, with a 6/8, from Corvino, the Atari dog. He is a 6-time Raoul Jacques winner. But these dogs are not exactly purebred Ravenclaws. What if I told you? I have a purebred Corvino dog. But she ran into the fight. Would you cross this dog? If she was hers, I would say no, kill her. But if she were mine, I'd risk it. But seriously, the fight depends on the origin, on the dog. Look at the big bulldogs. Let's take Bolio, as an example. He was the son of Red Baby. She was from a female dog, called Susie. Susie did not fight for a long time while she was in California. Then her name changed to Goldie. Also, there were many dogs from this family, outside the ring. Bolio's father, called Zeke. He was a good dog, but his father and grandfather, called Coronel, didn't fight. So would I have bred a purebred, Corvino dog? Even if he had never fought before.
Sonny, did you know Walter Komosinski?
Yes, of course, Walter Komosinski, I knew him well. Walter was from Creighton, Pennsylvania. He lived there most of his life. As a teenager, he moved to Poland. Walter was a manager at a mine. After he retired, engineering students would come to him whenever a problem arose for advice. Walter was a pleasant person with a lot of life experience. He could talk about any subject. He should be, senator or a president. He bought a small farm near where he worked. He had 88 acres of land. And he owned about 40 dogs. He was a good breeder, and a good trainer. It was hard to beat him. Joe and Walter were good friends. But Walter, he bred dogs of the Colby lineage. He always bought Colby dogs, and they were very successful. I got in the ring with him twice. And I won, twice. Once, in 1 hour and 58 minutes. And the other, in 10 minutes. The dog, who won the fight, 10 minutes. It was called Bravo. I bought it from Hansel. He weighed 17 kilos, and he was very good. And the first time I won, from Walter. It was with a dog, called Hunt Pete. Hunt Pete is the sire of Giroux Bear. I don't know if Walter knew about carbohydrates. But his dogs, they were strong, and they always arrived, in the exact weight. Besides, he didn't like to travel. He preferred that they come to him. And that the referee was a friend of his. I know the fight took place, in a poorly lit place. The place looked like a coal mine, or a barn. A dusty carpet, and some light bulbs.
What can you tell me about Mike Ferris?
Mike is not a breeder, he is a dog fighter. If he thought you had a good dog, he would find you, even in Hong Kong. He is also active, and a good dogman. I know he introduced skinny dogs. But a lot of people did the same back then. Mike lives in Chicago. He works at a Catholic school or something. He has moved away from dogs, due to his health, he has asthma. His wife divorced him. So he walked away from the dogs.
Did you know the Lord, Floyd Boudreaux? Was it in person?
Who? Did you mean, the brother of Martin Luther King? Yes, I knew. He's a good, dogman. I remember that for a long time. Me and him, we battle each other, with our dogs. I read his interview in a magazine. But, I didn't say anything. I don't know, how the ancient dog Eli was created. But, I know at that time. Our dogs weren't black. The only black dog I knew. It was Cry Baby by Evelyn Start. I saw the scrub dog, twice. Mayfield won easily with him. But, I think, he is not a fighting dog. I saw Blind Billy, Floyd's mainstay. But, I can't say exactly, where he got that idea. You must have heard the rumors. But, that's all I can say. About this subject.
What happened when you went to Mississippi? When did you pitch your dog against Jim Taylor?
I remember betting $500 against Jim in 1964. I won the fight in 30 minutes. I remember, as soon as we entered the ring, the bet immediately increased to $5,000. At the time, that was a lot of money. Then we fight it again. The fight lasted 2 hours and 45 minutes, and I lost. He was with a bitch, of the Crenshaw lineage. That bitch was called Leprechaun. I fought, with Patches, in the 16 kilograms category. The two bitches died after the fight.
What other good dogs have you seen?
Well, I saw Earl Tudor's Spike kill Smith's Duggan. The Spike hit the shoulder a lot. I liked him. Spike had two brothers, one named Jeff and the other Buck. I saw Buck lose to Cracker. But Cracker was his half-brother. Buck was the son of Debois, with Black Widow. And Cracker was the son of Debois, with the female Red Lady. All these dogs are talented. Well, I also liked Kirkland's black dog. But he was also related to Debois. The owner of the black dog was a man from Alabama. He beat the dog Cracker. Another dog, which I can rate, among the best I've ever seen. It's Jerome Hernandez, the nigger dog. Teal's Tip and Susie are also good. Cotton Bullet and Reno were good dogs. Reno is a 4-time winner, he is from the Corvino bloodline. I put it in the ring, that was my first fight. It lasted 2 hours and 45 minutes. Mr. Mayfield had a little dog named Jessie. She was brindle, white and brown. Biggest comeback, from the corner, of a ring, I've ever seen. That's when Duggan crawled around the ring towards Spike. His bones were sticking out. I remember Joe was excited. He threw the cape in the air, and squealed with excitement. I saw Wingo, who owned Bill Cotton. Mr. Jolly, who sold Bill Cotton to him. I saw Mike Ferris's dog Adolph, which was bred by HNZL. Ferris Apache was a very good bitch. An excellent fighting bitch, weighing only 15 kilos.
What, can you tell me? About the dog, Cassius Clay? Do you know where he's from?
Okay. Cassius Collie was purchased by Pat Bodzianowski from a preacher for $10. This preacher was from the South, from Illinois. He decided to get rid of the dog. Why did this bulldog kill a dog in the street? And he was compromising the church. And that preacher, he was a fanatic. No one knows, from which crossing Clay was born. But, you can be sure, he is not the son of Teddy, or other Corvino dogs. I created Teddy, until his death. And I mated him, just my bitches, in my own backyard. Teddy never mated with Goldie, Crazy Mary, or any of those bitches. Yes, I saw an article about that in a magazine. However, back to Cassius Collie. He was a big dog, he was red with a black mask. He was terribly nice. When Pat bought it, he rolled it several times, but never matched it for cash. I tried to stop this dog, in the ring. But it came to nothing. One person told me that this dog had fought in the ring about 18 or 19 times. As I said before, he never fought for money. Pat sold it to Don Devine in Florida. Don bought this dog because he thought he was of the Ravenclaw lineage. He paid $900 for this dog. And I must say, it was a lot of money back then. When he came here, he was nervous, for that reason. He asked if I could stay with him. At the time, I had a bar, full of Mexican dogs, and black ones. They were hurt, from fighting each other. I had to take them, even to the veterinarian. Devine gave me some money and took a dog the next day. He pitted Clay against Strider. The Strider was the bloodline, Greenwood or Maloney. The fight was in Pickens, Mississippi, at 5:30 a.m. Clay won, and then Devine won another fight with him. The fight was not as successful as the first one. So he didn't put Clay in the ring again. While Pat still owned this dog. I asked him to let me prepare and display it. He let me, but this dog, he tried to kill me. I didn't like him. Every time I brought him food, his eyes would turn green and he would go crazy. Finally, I called Pat and told him, "Get that son of a bitch out of here."
Who issued the fake documents about Cassius Clay? Do you know if it was Devine?
I'm pretty sure it was Pat. That he made those papers, for the dog. But, it's really none of my business. I didn't do it, and if anyone did, it wasn't me anyway. After all, there are many dogs, with false documents, about which we know nothing. You have to understand one thing. Fighting dogs, Bright. They always come first. Well, you know, like what I told you. Teddy never made it with those bitches. And they were mentioned, in a magazine article.
You just said that buying a Bert Sorrell's dog is a good choice.
Yes. Teddy never made it with these bitches. They were mated, with the Duggan too. But Teddy can be considered the same as Duggan too. He was a litter brother to Giroux Bear, Hunt Pete, and Muggs. Some know this dog, like Reggie.
Who made the pedigrees, indicating Teddy on them? And the Sorrells know about this?
I don't know who did it, and I don't know if he knows it, but now he will. You can see, Teddy already had a reputation. I entered with Teddy, against Al Offer, and won with him. The fight lasted 2 hours and 14 minutes. At that time, he was already 7 years old, and he didn't have any teeth. He was a Gameness dog. But Duggan too was just as good. Teddy died on February 14, 1964. And I'm speaking the truth. He never made it, with any bitch but mine. I will also tell you about Going Light Barney. Joe sold his father. It was a dog, named Booger. For Morris Rootberg, as a watchdog. Rootberg asked in a letter to Joe that he wanted a guard dog. And Joe had different dogs for different people. So Joe sold him this dog. Therefore, this dog was never put into fights. Joe, in the paperwork, signed this Pitbull under the name Rootberg. So Rootberg sold a restaurant. And moved to California. In California, he crossed the dog with a female, Curvino. The female is called Crazy Mary, and as a result of this mating, Going Light Barney was born. His father is not a Curvino dog.
Why did Joe give the fake papers? For that dog?
Because, he knew, people would ask about that guard dog. And why he didn't fight. Good. That's what he thought. He thought it would be better to give this dog a different pedigree.
The dog's owners, going light Barney. Did you know that?
I don't know. I think about it myself.
And how was your relationship with Maurice Carver, Leo Kennard, and Howard Teal?
Teal, he was a good dogman, and we're good friends. Teal is from North Carolina. He has his own restaurant. Teal had some dogs from Old Colby, which generated the Red Boy line. I don't know for sure if Sarge, which was his, was a Colby dog. I think he forged the papers. But I think Sarge could be the father of Red Boy. Sarge is a good dog. But he lost his last fight. That part of the country where they came from. It has always been famous for having good breeders and good dogmen. Leo and Maurice were good friends for me. Leo was a very decent person, and very honest. He had a beautiful property, and I spent a lot of time there. I remember one day, I started asking questions. Just like what you're doing now. He said, "Son, I've been at this for a long time. But I don't know everything, you son of a bitch. Look around you, and you will see dogs from good backgrounds. And some 1, 2 or 3 times. And always, you'll see a stray dog come out of nowhere and win. Son, I've been at this for a long time, you motherfucker, but I still don't know much. Out of 10 mated dogs you will have 4 to 5 really good dogs." Maurice Carver was a good dogman. There's a lot of discussion about his pedigrees. But I'm sure they are baseless matters. He was quite successful as a breeder. But many breeders have sinned on his pedigrees. And when the bad becomes more important to you than the good, I think you're in trouble. Maurice sent me lots of good dogs. I'll tell you now, what kind of person he is. If only he knew I had a good dog. He would call me and ask if it was possible to cross paths with her. Carver told me it was his mistake to cross Bullison. And that he would like to breed his bitch with a dog called Boots the blacksmith. Carver was waiting at the border. He had 2 44 Magnums. He gave one to Eddie Klaus, and one to Hernandez. Hernandez gave it to me after Maurice Carver died. Earl Tudor was a dog fighter, and very active. He also bred good dogs. Joe had a friend who worked at the post office, where the Earl Tudor received the mail. He was a black guy named Silvers. This Silvers, he printed Tudor's correspondence. And then he would tell Joe everything that was in those letters. Joe got the letters from Earl Tudor before him.
You think a Ravenclaw, of pure bloodline. Would it be good enough, in today's fights?
Good. I would say these are Gameness dogs. Perhaps now, they were a little out of date, for our time.
What dog do you keep now?
It's been a while since I've been out of combat with dogs. I have a few dogs. For me, but it's because I really like dogs. And my wife Bridget is one person who can prove it. I have several dogs, from the Boomerang lineage, that I like.
I do not promote, support or condone any violations of the Animal Welfare Act 1976. or any other local, state and federal law. I am not affiliated with dogfighting in any way, or in any way. I am simply a pet owner and enthusiast of the American Pit Bull Terrier, and the great history and legacy passed down through the generations. I believe it is important to know where we came from to know where we are going. Articles posted are strictly for historical and educational purposes. I do not necessarily represent the opinions expressed in these articles. My name is Rodolpho Luiz, and I invite everyone to enjoy the knowledge of this wonderful breed. Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. God bless you all. I went. Handshake, subscribe, handshake.